Today we're going to do a deeper dive into the Danny Masterson rape case where he got 30 years to life for raping 2 women 2 decades ago. Yes, you heard me right. And when I first heard this case, my ears kind of perked up and I thought, okay, something's not right here, because I am almost always, when it comes to stuff like this, my first question is, first of all, why did you wait so late to come forward? What are you hoping to gain? What are your motives? You know, what are you trying to do here? And I never just say, okay, take their word for it. I never do. Because all women cannot be believed. Some women lie. Some women can even be abusers. So I think it's always important to give a fair shake to both parties. And so you can imagine, when I had seen some people commenting that there was no evidence for this conviction, I really thought to myself, okay, this isn't right. I mean, you've got to have evidence, right? That was my point of view until I seen this article. This one article literally changed how I viewed this. Because 9 times out of 10, I will always say, okay, no, we need to look deeper into this. But I read this. Danny Masterson sentenced to 30 years to life for raping former Scientologist. Ding, ding, ding. Scientology. And then I found out he was a Scientologist member. And then I thought to myself, okay, there is something going on. But now, I normally wouldn't jump to this conclusion right away when it comes to a religion, because we all know every religion has its problems. Catholic, Scientology, Christian, whatever religion is, there are problems. I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't. But Scientology in particular, they have had a long course of problems. And if some of you are around my age, you might remember the whole incident with Leah Remini. She used to be a Scientology member, and she suffered greatly at the hands of the Scientologist church once she left.
Through its founder and leader, L. Ron Hubbard, institutionalized a series of retaliatory activities to be taken against any individual, organization, business, or government that Scientology deems to be an enemy or suppressive person. The ultimate purpose of the handling of suppressive persons or attackers is to totally restrain and muzzle, obliterate, and ruin utterly any individual they deem an enemy. Scientology directs followers to spot who is attacking us, start feeding lurid, blood, sex, crime actual evidence on the attackers to the press. In the past 70 years, Scientology, via defendants, has conducted countless sophisticated, well-funded, and brutal operations against suppressive persons that have spanned every decade in many countries. Here, defendants have undertaken a campaign to ruin and destroy the life and livelihood of Leah Remini, a former Scientologist of nearly 40 years, after she was deemed a suppressive person and declared fair game by Scientology in 2013 when she publicly departed Scientology. For the past 10 years, Ms. Remini has been stalked, surveilled, harassed, threatened, intimidated, and, moreover, has been the victim of intentional, malicious, and fraudulent rumors via hundreds of Scientology-controlled and coordinated social media accounts that exist solely to intimidate and spread misinformation.
Okay, so you've just heard what the Church of Scientology has done to members that decide to leave the church. Leah Remini, first case. She was stalked, harassed, slandered. They literally did everything and anything they could to shut her up, to stop her from talking. And so you can imagine, when I heard that Danny Masterson's victims were Scientologists at one point, it immediately made sense to me why they waited so long to talk. And this is just my opinion. I believe they were probably threatened. They were probably stalked. They were probably scared to come forward because of what they had endured. So we're going to go on to the next segment. We're going to actually look at the case and kind of break it down a little bit, because prior to me actually doing a little bit of research, I had not heard anything as in regards to the testimony, evidence, whatever you want to call it. And I'd like to say, if you are triggered or easily disturbed, you may not want to finish watching this video. All right, here is a little bit of a synopsis of what's going on. It says a jury was deadlocked on a third woman's accusation. So there were 3 women. The assaults took place in the early 2000s, but Masterson's victims said they waited years to come forward because Scientology doctrine forbade them to report a fellow member to the police. He was convicted on 2 counts of rape. Masterson has 5 accusers who allege that the Church of Scientology suppressed them from reporting the former actor, who was a lifelong member, to the LAPD. Okay, nothing suspicious there. While the LAPD launched an investigation into Masterson back in 2017, he denied the allegations. It says that the accusers and suggested they had only come forward because they'd been in contact with Leah Remini, who was then working on a television series speaking out against the Church of Scientology, who I referenced in the first part of the video, who actually left this religion, and she was threatened in order to shut her up. Goes on to say 2 more victims also came forward with rape allegations that year, prompting Masterson's agency to drop him and Netflix to fire him from the ranch. That I did not know. 3 of the accusers who testified in the LA trial filed a lawsuit against the actor and the Church of Scientology in 2019, alleging that they were stalked after the police reports. Masterson's defense team unsuccessfully tried to block testimony about the church from the trial, arguing it would bias the jury. A judge ruled that the women could testify to their feelings that the church had suppressed them. For his part, Masterson pled not guilty to all 3 counts of forcible rape. The judge declared a mistrial after jurors deadlocked in the first trial. And here we are going to get into the testimony of the accusers, or Jane Does. And it says, Jane Doe, number 1, said she felt like she was going to die when Masterson abused her. Masterson's first accuser, who despite being named in trial briefs testified as Jane Doe number 1, told the jurors Masterson had backdoor abused her during their first sexual encounter in 2002. She recalled confiding in a Church of Scientology ethics officer afterwards, who she said forced her to make peace with what had happened and made her complete an ethics program where she says she was taught she was responsible for all the alleged crime. Now, in a lot of these, I'm going to say a lot of these cult groups, this is a very common thing that is taught to the women. And it says, my understanding my entire life was that you can never be a victim. No matter what condition you find yourself in life, no matter how horrible, you were responsible. You created that. The same witness then goes on to testify that Masterson abused her at his house in 2003, allegedly giving her something to drink before throwing her into the jacuzzi, where she said she felt nauseous and experienced trouble seeing. Per her account, Masterson ignored her protest and carried her to his upstairs bathroom, where she says he put his finger down her throat to make her vomit before dragging her into the shower and soaping her breasts without her consent. Jane Doe number 1 said she punched Masterson, who took her to his bed. There, she said she passed out and woke up to the actor penetrating her. After a struggle, she said the actor pulled a gun from his nightstand drawer and ordered her to shut up as he held it up. Jane Doe then goes on to say that she understood that reporting a Scientologist in good standing like Masterson would make her a suppressive person and guilty of a high crime. My life would be over, she told jurors, explaining that she feared expulsion. My parents would have to disconnect from me. My daughters couldn't go to school. I wouldn't have anywhere to work or live. I wouldn't have anywhere to go. She said she later wrote to the church's international justice chief and asked for permission to report Masterson, but was deterred. She reported the rape anyway in 2004, at which point she said she received a call from the chief telling her, you have no idea how blanked you are. The LAPD did not pursue charges at the time. A decision Jane Doe number 1 said left her feeling scared. She then went on to sign an NDA and accepted a $400,000 settlement for Masterson, citing pressure from the actor and the church. Quite frankly, I think this whole case it gets more damning just for the fact that she took $400,000 in a settlement. It wasn't bad enough that the last victim took a $400,000 settlement from Masterson to be quiet. Apparently, his former girlfriend, Christina, told the court Masterson was both physically and emotionally abusive, recalling a night she allegedly woke up to him abusing her. And Christina testified that she screamed at Masterson to get off me when she woke up to him abusing her in 2001. She told jurors she met the actor in 1996 when she was an 18-year-old model who had just moved to LA. She said, I believed he was very charming and I fell for him, adding that she moved in with Masterson within 2 weeks of their first date, he soon convinced her to convert to Scientology. She said she was told those closest to her were suppressive people and disconnected from them socializing with fellow Scientologists. Christina then claimed he became sexually aggressive and physically and emotionally abusive, explaining it was normal to wake up to him having intercourse with her and alleging that the actor once dragged her across the floor by her hair when she refused to have sex with him, telling jurors Masterson had rules about touching his hair and face. She described purposely pulling on his hair the night of the alleged assault in 2001 to get him to stop, and said Masterson hit her in the face in response. I felt shocked. I started screaming. Christina recalled adding that the actor then got off the bed, spit on me, and then called me white trash. She then went on to speak about the terror campaign the Church of Scientology allegedly subjected her to after coming forward with her accusations. Variety reported that Christina appeared panicked on the stand at one point saying, "I can't breathe." She testified that she went to the church, which she called a criminal organization, in her testimony. After the alleged 2001 assault, the church official told her it wasn't possible to assault one's girlfriend and that it was her job to give Masterson sex whenever he wanted. She also alleged her ethics officer told her no crime was committed and that, like Jane Doe number 1, she was put into an ethics program. She eventually reported Masterson to the LAPD in 2016 and says she has been treated as a suppressive person since. According to her, the church allegedly stalked her, threatened her, and attempted to run her off the road. "What my husband and my babies have been through in the last 6 years, I would not have survived it in 2001, she told the jurors. Masterson's defense team again tried to point out inconsistencies between Christina B's police interviews and the testimony she relayed at her preliminary hearing last year, to which Christina responded she had never been interviewed by a detective before and was terrified, adding that she had always answered questions honestly. Okay, so there you have it. A lot of these victims were literally terrorized by the church, allegedly, and so they didn't want to speak, and it makes complete sense to me. Now we are going to move on to more evidence that was given by the victims. It says, a woman identified in court as Jane Doe number 2 testified that Masterson violently abused her despite her pleas for him to stop, adding that she felt like a ragdoll afterward. The woman said Masterson invited her to his house in 2003, describing a similar scenario as Jane Doe 1. She explained the actor gave her a glass of wine and commanded her like a drill sergeant to go into the jacuzzi, where she felt heavy and numb, as Masterson began kissing her. I did not want any of what was happening, she said, explaining that she repeatedly told Masterson we cannot have sex. Masterson allegedly ordered her to get into the shower and penetrated her without her consent before demanding she go into the bedroom. Jane Doe number 2, a Scientologist at the time of the abuse, said Masterson was more important than her and the church, prompting her to recontextualize what had happened because she feared the consequences of reporting to the church, which she said had discouraged her from reporting a previous abuse by an ex-boyfriend. So as you can see, there's this common theme of these women not wanting to come forward because the church is discouraging them and saying you can't report this at all. She said, I was gaslighting myself, comparing Masterson to a predator and stating that she understood it was a sexual abuse when she finally left the church. As an adult woman, you have plenty of time to see these distinctions between someone having affinity for you and someone targeting you as a piece of meat. Though Jane Doe number 2 reported the incident, so she did report it to the LAPD 13 years later, she said there was something shady about the way the investigation stalled. She also stated she had faced harassment and intimidation. So, once again, harassed, intimidated, you know, to make her be quiet. We then move on to another victim, Trisha V., who said Masterson abused her without a condom and told her diseases are in the mind. That sounds lovely. Per Variety, a fourth accuser, so this is number 4, identified as Trisha V., she is a non-Scientologist whom Masterson's defense team tried and failed to exclude from testifying, so they tried to stop her. Told the court she fell asleep on Masterson's floor in 1996 and woke up to him sexually abusing her. Called by the prosecution to establish a pattern of Masterson's misconduct, Trisha told jurors she had worked on a film with Masterson at the time and went to his house for a wrap party. Because she smoked marijuana and had a few drinks, she and other guests decided to stay at Masterson's home. Trisha testified that Masterson brought her to his bedroom, where she said she eventually woke up to him penetrating her, at which point she became disorientated and lost consciousness. So there's a pattern here. She then went on to describe another time, a month later, describing how he came to her house. We are joined by Baby Pixel, because you just won't leave me alone while I'm trying to record this, so get your time on camera. How he came to her house and offered her a flask to drink before the two went into Trisha's bedroom, where she said she began feeling intoxicated and recalled Masterson trying to take her pants off. She said she told him she didn't want to have sex and that he left and continued on. I was telling him to stop, but I was also telling him that he didn't have a condom on. I remember him saying diseases are in the mind. Oof. Yuck. Following the accuser's testimonies, Masterson told the judge he had decided not to testify, and his defense team made a motion to dismiss the case, which was denied. The judge ultimately declared a mistrial last December. We are not even close to coming to a unanimous decision on any count and are convinced this will not change, jurors said in a note to the judge at the time. Masterson's retrial began in, looks like, late April of this year and lasted more than a month. Jurors deliberated for over a week before finding the actor guilty on 2 counts of sexual abuse by force or fear. The New York Times reports, though the jury deadlocked on a 3rd abuse charge. While the prospect of drugging was only alluded to in the initial trial, Masterson's accusers testified to feeling disorientated after he gave them alcoholic beverages. The judge presiding over the retrial allowed prosecutors to explicitly tell jurors that Masterson had drugged the women. In April, the Church of Scientology released a statement distancing itself from the women's allegations, of course, insisting it has no policy prohibiting or discouraging members from reporting criminal conduct of members. The Los Angeles Times reports that Masterson remained calm and even chatty during jury deliberations in his retrial, and that he did not appear to react to his guilty verdict. So yeah, I mean, no reaction. Okay, so we've just covered all the witnesses and their testimony that I know of. I think a couple more witnesses or victims came forward just the other day. I'm not going to cover that because it is all pretty much the same thing. And if you have noticed or you have been listening, you probably picked up on the fact that almost all these victims, their accounts are very similar. There is a pattern that is followed here. You know, he takes these women home, he allegedly drugs them, forcefully penetrates them. You know, quite frankly, I think he deserves the 30 years to life because you have a lot of these actors that do this stuff all the time to people, and they get away with it because of their political or their religious affiliations and the fact that they have a lot of money and they're wealthy and powerful. And the average Joe can't stand up or, you know, do much, you know, when you're dealing with that. Yeah, and I feel sorry for the victims, and I really do hope they get the justice that they deserve. Let me know in the comment section if you think this verdict was correct. Do you think it's wrong?